Parshas Yisro, the centerpiece of Parshas Yisro is Matan Torah. Yeah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed himself to us and he gave us the Aseres HaDibros. But the Parsha begins with the arrival of Yisro and the conversations he has with Moshe Rabbeinu and the advice he gives in terms of how to set up the legal system. Is there a connection between Matan Torah and this whole Maisa with Yisro? So, in the Mechilta, there are two Tanoic opinions about when Yisro came. When Yisro came. One Mandama says that he came before Matan Torah. The other Mandama says he came after Matan Torah. These same two opinions are also a Machlokes Amoyroim in Masechtes Zvachim Daf Kuf Tezayin. So if he came before Matan Torah, so it appears over here simply because this is where it happened. Between Milchemes Amalek, which was in the end of Parshas Beshalach, and Matan Torah, which is coming up, this is when Yisro arrives. But according to the Mandama that Yisro came after Matan Torah, so it's written out of place, because in terms of when it happened, it should have appeared in the end of Parshas Yisro, maybe in the end of Parshas Mishpatim, where we sum up the Indian of Matan Torah, but not before Matan Torah. But we all know that Ein Mukdam U'Ma'ocher B'Torah. Sometimes things that happened later appear before, sometimes things that happen before appear later. Ein Mukdam U'Ma'ocher B'Torah. And therefore, it's not shver, but the principle of Ein Mukdam U'Ma'ocher B'Torah is based on the fact that Torah is not about telling us stories, but Torah is about instructing us, about teaching us lessons, as the Zohar says that Torah is called Torah, begin the Oiri. It's Miloshen Hoira, and therefore sometimes things are written not in their chronological order, but rather in a logical order where they're written in a way that we should learn something. And the question is, but what are we meant to learn from the fact that the Torah placed Yisro's arrival before Matan Torah in spite of the fact that he came after Matan Torah? So the Ibn Ezra, who follows the opinion of Yisro Achar Matan Torah Bo, he says that it's written before in order to juxtapose the coming of Yisro to Milchemes Amalek, which took place in the end of Parshas Beshalach. And that's why it was taken from after Matan Torah and put before Matan Torah in order that it should be samuch to the Milchemes Amalek. And this is the Lashon of the Ibn Ezra, Va'ato, Afarish. And now I will explain, Lama Nichnesa Parshas Yisro B'Makom Hazeh. Why was it inserted over here? Ba'avur, he just mentioned all the bad that Amalek did to Klal Yisrael. His kir kenegdoi hatoiva she'asa Yisro leYisro. V'kosuf vayaged Yisro vayichad Yisro al kol hatoiva. So Yisro was happy for us. And v'nosan lohem eitzah toiva u'nechoina l'Moshe Yisrael. He gave us good advice. U'Moshe amaloi. Moshe says to him in Parshas Ba'aloisecha v'hayisa lanu le'einayim. V'hatam sheheir einayim. He enlightened us. V'sho'ol amar. V'ata asisa chesed in kol b'nei Yisrael, as it says in Shmuel Aleph. Ubavur shekasuv l'maylo milchama l'Hashem ba'amalek sheyisrael chayovim lehilachem boy kasher yaniach Hashem lahem. So the Torah taught us that we should, so to speak, pay back Amalek for the evil that he did. His kid var Yisro kihem im goy Amalek. The descendants of Yisro actually lived next to Amalek, as we'll see. sheyizkeru Yisrael chesed aviyim, v'lo yigu b'zaroi. That Klal Yisrael should forever remember the chesed that Yisro did for us, and we shouldn't do anything bad to his descendants. V'hinei ra'inu harechavim shehem b'nei Yisro hoyu im b'nei Yisrael b'Yerushalayim u'b'mei Yirmiyah yoynadav ben Rechav. And we looked after them. The Ramban brings in the name of the Ibn Ezra a bit more. Kikasha his kir hara asha asa imanu amolik v'tziva shenigmeleu kira asa. He told us that we should pay him back for his ra'ah. His kir she'asa lanu Yisro toiva v'hayreiseinu shenishalim like mol toiv, that we should reward him for the good that he did. When we'll come to be machris amolik as we are commanded, we should be careful not to hurt the bnei Keni ha'oimdim imohem, v'loinoi sifam imam, who dvar shol shamalem kain in Shmuel Aleph, Kapitel Tezvav, that he says, don't hurt the bnei Keni. So what's the message? I mean, we could understand that the Torah is telling us that just like we should be noikem in those that did bad to us, we should be grateful to those that did good to us and act towards them accordingly. But I think the message is deeper, because in the Ibn Ezra and the Ramban you see that it's not just that Yisro and Amalek are neighbors in the Torah, because the Torah put Yisro in the coming of Yisro in the beginning of Parshas Yisro next to the Molchemes Amalek, which is in the end of Parshas Beshalach, but they're actually neighbors in the real world. They lived close to each other in the real world, as the Bnei Keni did live next to Amalek. And the Torah is telling us that we should differentiate between them. Well, what does that mean? We also might ask. It's true that there's an inyan in putting Yisro next to Amalek, but by doing so, we put Yisro before Matan Torah. Is that just because we have no other choice, and there's no meaning to the fact that it's before Matan Torah? So it might be that on the verge of our becoming an independent entity, our becoming a nation, a people, the Torah wants to make sure that we shouldn't develop a mentality of us and them, as if only we are the good ones and all the rest are bad. So therefore the Torah puts the Parsha of Amalek and the Parsha of Yisro right before Matan Torah. In other words, not all of them are bad, and not all of them are good. I mean, there's Amalek that comes to fight against us, and there's Yisro who's actually good to us. Matan Torah is the final stage in our becoming a people, our becoming a nation. But it already began in Mitzrayim, as it says in the beginning of Parashat Shemos, Bnei Yisrael poru vayishutzu vayatzmu b'ma'od ma'od. From the 12 Shvatim and the Shivim Nefesh, we became an Am. As Parai says, Vayomer el Amoy hine Am b'nei Yisrael rava otzum imenu. It's interesting that the first one that defines us as an Am is actually Parai. Yeah, he's the first one that mentions the word Am with regard to the Bnei Yisrael. But so in Mitzrayim we were already an Am to a certain extent, and we behaved that way as an independent Am, as Chazal tell us, Shaloishinu as L'shoinam, Shaloishinu as Shmom, Shaloishinu as Malbusham. So we have a distinct identity. So it's interesting to see that right in the beginning of that Pasha, the Torah emphasizes that there were also non-Jews that were good. The Miyaldus Ivriyos, according to the Abravanel and many others, were not Jewish. They were the midwives that were miyaled the Ivriyos. Yes, so they were Mitzriyos. And about them it says, Vatir eno hamiyaldois es ha'elokim. So they were Chasidei Umaysa Olam. In the same parasha, we have the Bas Paroi that saved the life of Moshe Rabbeinu. Knowing that he's Miyaldei Ha'ivrim Huzeh, and she risks transgressing her father's commandment of Kol Ben Ayiloi Dayoret Ashlichu, and she raised him in her house, and that was the key to the Geula. And again in that parasha, we have Yisro already, that after he hears what the Ish Mitzri did for his daughters at the Be'er Hamayim, he says to them, Va'ayoi, lama ze azavten es ha'ish, kir'en loy v'yoichal lechem. So he excelled in the midah of Hakaras HaToiv, and he made sure to repay Moshe Rabbeinu for what he did for his daughters. So these are all three non-Jews that the Torah emphasizes that they did something good. Right there in Parashat Shemos, when we become the Am B'nai Yisrael. And on the other hand, we have in the same parasha, Yidden that were not good. Vayetzei Bayoim Hasheni, V'hine Shnei Anoshim Ivrim Nitzim, Vayomer LaRosha, Lama Sakariacho. So there's also a Yid that could be a Rosha. So that on the verge of our becoming a nation, the Torah emphasizes that it's not about us and them. It's about the individual, and don't generalize, and don't think that all of us are so good, and don't think that that everybody on the outside is so terrible. So in Eicho Rabossi, in Kapitel Beis Yud Gimel, it says in Yoim Alecha Odom Yesh Chochma Bagoyim Tamin. Because it's a pasuk in Ovadia, v'ha'avadeti chachamim me'edoim. So you see that there are chachamim in Edom. Yesh Torah bagoyim al tamin. And this is Miguel halacha, because the Gemara says in Brachas Daf Nun Ches, Tanu Rabban haroye chachmei Yisrael oime baruch shecholak michachmasoi lirei of chachmei u'misail oime baruch shenosan michachmasoi l'basar v'dam. So we acknowledge that there are chachmei u'misail. So together with, and even before Matan Torah, where we get the Torah, in other words, the Torah which is exclusively ours, Torah Bagoyim Al Tamein, comes the story of Yisro, who advises Moshe V'ata Sechze, and sees what Moshe Rabbeinu himself doesn't see, that this kind of system of V'chol Ha'om is not sustainable, and he needs to be memane sorry alofim, sorry meyos, and sorry asoris, so that we have the chochma bagoyim tamin together with the Torah bagoyim al tamin, all in the same parsha, one next to each other. The Alter from Kelm has a fascinating mimer under the title Mikol Melamda Hiskalti. It's in the Chochma Musar Chelik Aleph, Siman Ayin Aleph. And I'll read to you what he says. He says, Matzinu berabon shel kol Yisrael. Asher mosa nafshe al klal Yisrael. Lo yitzia mi Mitzrayim. L'krei lehem asayam. He's seeing in Moshe Rabbeinu's leadership, that he was so dedicated to the Jewish people. Asher mosa nafshe al klal Yisrael. Lo yitzia mi Mitzrayim. L'krei lehem asayam. Uba Moshe v'hayrida la'aretz. He had Torah. Shehoisa begov hemeroimim, and Moshe Rabbeinu brought the Torah down. V'hina Yisro shehoya mefateim agolim la'avodah zarah, uksheshama yitzias Mitzrayim bovin his guy. Okay, so he's just a freshly minted ger. V'take it from a yad. Bikeres Moshe Rabban Shel Yisro. Immediately he criticized Moshe Rabban Shel Yisro. V'zel l'shein Rashi. That Yisro was bothered that Moshe Rabbeinu was being mezalzel b'chvoidon shel Yisrael, and this is the Moshe Rabbeinu who actually did everything for us. And nevertheless, Yisro criticized him that he doesn't care enough about Kvoidon Shel Yisro, because Kol Ha'om Oimdim Alecha Miboike V'Aderev is a zilzul b'Kvoidon Shel Yisro. Now he says, writes the Alter Kelm, V'hoya hadova kosheli mioid. I found this very difficult to understand. Sheyeh Moshe Rabbeinu olav hasholem mut echas v'sholem, that Moshe Rabbeinu should make a mistake in something bedover sheyisroi ra, that Moshe Rabbeinu should not see something that Yisro saw. Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't sensitive to this problem, and Yisro was. Ad shebe'ezrosei, with the Rebbeinu Shalom's help, zachinu liyashiv b'tuv tam. Ki gam bazeh hoyatzorech liyos rabbon shel kol Yisro. That in this also Moshe Rabbeinu was destined to become the Rebbe of Alayim. In what? Laharois ledoirois. Ki gam hayoise godel ye oyev toichecha. To teach us that even the greatest person should love rebuke, and mehayoise cotton, even from a small person. Ki halo Yisrael hoyu mevazin es Pinchas ben Benoi. Yidden, they put down Pinchas, who was a descendant of Yisrael. V'hoyu koirnoise ben Puti. Zeh, right? Because shepitem avi imoy agolim lavoi dezorah. V'hine Moshe Rabbeinu olav Hashem shekibul Torah min hashamayim lo yala al liboy davar sheger shebol izgair omed al zeh. And nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't chap what Yisro did. This Yisro, who was a mafatim agolim lavoi dezorah, v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu hiskim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu agreed that Yisro had it right. V'zeh limud niflo l'chol adoris. Yeah, and this is a limud niflo l'chol adoris that we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu. She'hakotten it's interesting that all of a sudden now he made a twist and he says the limud is that the Ktanim should criticize the Gdolim. But in any case, it goes both ways, that the Gdolim should listen to the Ktanim, and the Ktanim should, in a respectful way, criticize the Gdolim. So it's noteworthy that he's assuming that Yisro was a ger, who just now was Megayer. It's not even clear, because it's not clear that at this point Yisro was already Megayer. On the pasuk Ato Yodati Ki Godel Hashem Mikol Elohim, the Midrash says in Dvarim Rabbah and Parshas Dvarim, Yisro nosan mamish ba'avodah zarah, shenemar Godel Hashem Mikol Elohim. So he still believed in Avodah Zarah, says the Medrash. So it's not clear exactly when was he Megai, but I want to tell you that it's not even clear that Yisro was ever Megai, because the Orach Chaim in Parshas Ba'aloi Sicha, Kapitel Yud, Pasuk Lamed, brings the Mechilta, which is in Parshas Yisro by us in Masechta Amalek Parsha Beis. And this is the Lashon of the Mechilta. It says, Vayishalach Moshe es choisnoi. It says in the end of this Parsha of Yisro, Vayishalach, Pasuk Chav Zayin, Vayishalach Moshe es choisnoi. He sent him off. So it says in the Mechilta, Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Sholchoi mi kvoidoi shel olam. He sent them away from the kvoidoi shel olam. Rabbi Loza hamoidoi Omar Yisroi, Klum haner mahana ela b'makom hachoshech. Does a ner accomplish anything if it's not in a dark place? Ma ani munach ben chama v'levona. I mean, why should I be between the sun and the moon, between Moshe and Aaron? El ani hoylech la'artzi u'megayer kol b'nei Medina. I'll go back to my country and I'll be megayer kol b'nei Medina v'aviyam and I'll bring them lilmei Torah. In any case, the Orach Chaim learns that according to Yeshua, that says Vayishalach Moshe es choisnoi is Sholchoi mikvoide shel olam, Yisro himself was not his guy. In other words, not only that Yisro had descendants that weren't Megaya. I mean, the Bnei Medina, we know that they weren't Megaya. I mean, maybe it was a plan, but it didn't materialize. But even his own family, the Astiris and Chazal, I mean, the different opinions, if they were or they weren't Megaya. But the Orach Chaim is saying that Yisro himself wasn't Megaya. And Vayishalach Moshe Eschoisnoi is he went back home. After all this, he went back home. So I'm just saying that according to Rabbi Shua, so Moshe Rabbeinu accepted this advice from a guy who actually proved to be more sensitive to the zilzul in the covet of Bnei Yisrael than Moshe Rabbeinu, who was done levadim in haboikev ad erev. So this all has to do with the chochma bagoyim tamin, yeah, and also in the it's not about us and them. You know, there's a pasuk in Tillim that says "Vatabet eini b'shuroi bakomim olai mereim tishmana oznoi." The pasuk pshat. I mean, no pasuk in Tillim is really pasuk, but the pasuk pshat is that in spite of the fact that shuroi, who are those that look down at me, my enemies, my foes, so in spite of the fact that the shuroi are looking negatively at me, and why? Because I, the tzaddik, am suffering, and they see that as a pirche on the truth of Avodas Hashem, as the whole Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos is discussing B'froyach Rishoim Kimayesev Vayotzitzu Kol Payali Oven. So Vatabet Eini B'Shuroi. So I see those shuroi, but bakomim olai mereim, the my foes stand up against me. Tishmana oznai. I hear the word of God. I hear the word of the Rebbeinu Shalom. I don't let go of my emunah, and I believe that and I believe that tzaddik atoma yifroch ke'eres balvan yizge, and that in the end, the truth will prevail, and the righteous will have what they deserve. That's more or less the pshat. But in the Tiferes Yisrael and Ovis, on the Mishnah in the beginning of the fourth parak of Mikol, where the Mishnah brings the pasuk Mikol Malamda Yiskalti, and the Mishnah says there's Ezeu Chochem Aloimid Mikol Adam. So he writes like this: Abnam b'yoyse yesh lo lahamaskil lahashgiach al divrei soinoi. He says you have to listen to everyone, but he says, and even more so, listen to your enemies. That's cursing him and putting him down and yelling at him. He should really listen carefully. He should calmly listen to the verbal abuse. Yeah, I'll call davar godel cotton. I'll call Godel v'kotten, sheyoimru loy, elu hamoichichim haneemonim. These are your real moichichim neemonim, the people that hate you. and then he says, "Bazeh pirashti aposik, vatabet eini b'shuroi, rotzoloyma, k'she'ovoi bein bnei adam zorim, she'eino makirim ois yadayim." So he says, "B'shuroi" means the people that look at me, meaning I come to a new place where people don't know me and they're observing everything that I do. So, vatabit eini b'shuroi. I look at those people to see if they're making faces in order that I should see if what I'm doing is good or not. In other words, he says, she'ovoi bein b'nei adam she'eino mekirim oisi adayim, v'al yidei zeh, hey mebitim al kol tnu oisai v'al dvarai. Therefore, they're observing me, closely and analyzing me. Leman lishpoit olai va'al midoisai, tabet einai gam einai aleihem. So I look at them to see eze parts of ponim yasel, like what kind of face he'll make. Leman eida lesakein as asher chosed biadayin, in order that I should know how to correct what I'm missing. He says that's when it's just beshuroi, people that don't know me and they're looking at me. But he says, when my foes stand up against me, mar'imim begidufehem, lo ye'en alahem, I won't answer them. Rak tishmana ozna yofe, my ears will hear stark lekoil elu hamalamdim hagdolim. I'll listen to these great malamdim. Val yidei zeh tzadik atoma yifroch. In other words, my growth will come from the fact that tishmana oznoi, the bakomim olai mereim. So in other words, people by nature don't like to be criticized. And we have defense mechanisms, obviously. One is like who is he? I mean, to say this and that to me, right? We divide the world into us and them, and we surround ourselves with like-minded people so that we live in what they call an echo chamber, right? And this is and we don't learn anything new, and we don't learn anything about our faults. And this danger is especially great with social groups, and even more with nations. In other words, it's about us, and we don't hear anything that anybody's saying to us because it's they. And therefore, in the parish of Kabbalah Torah by Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the Av HaChachamim and the Adon HaNeviim, we learn that Dafka Yisro the Goy, I mean, it brought to his attention things that he wasn't aware of himself. Yeah, which is the Chochma Bagoyim Tamin. And there's also a situation where the one who's criticizing me is really a nobody, and he even hates me. But nevertheless, a wise man knows that what's important is the message and not the messenger. And therefore, regardless of who's saying it, there might be some truth. And therefore, if I really care about becoming a better person, I listen instead of immediately becoming defensive. And that's the idea. Okay, Rabbi Say, I want to wish you a guten Shabbos.